The scripture too is littered with mentions of bronze. Whatever we may think of historically of the relevant narratives, it was assumed by the biblical writers that bronze was commonly available in the period of Israel's early history. Despite this abundance, sources of tin throughout the world are scarce, and apart from 3 sources identified in the eastern deserts of Egypt, for which there is no evidence of exploitation in antiquity, there are no known sources of tin anywhere in the Aegean, Eastern Mediterranean, or Near East. Thus the spread of tin bronze as the predominant metal in the ancient Near East, beginning in the 3rd millennium BC, implies the existence of some type of long-distance trade. Tin remains the enigma of Bronze Age metallurgy, simply because no one knows where the tin for the early and middle Bronze Ages in Anatolia, Mesopotamia, and Iran came from. Moreover, we have as of yet no real idea whether the first tin to be alloyed into bronze was stannite, the tin sulfide found within copper, or cassiterite, the tin oxide, nor do we know where the first alloying occurred. Unfortunately, the origin of tin remains as one of the knottiest problems in archaeology of metal sources, specifically with regard to the 3rd and 2nd millennium BC. All sorts of locations for the source of late Bronze Age tin have been suggested, among them Afghanistan, Assyria, Europe, Uzbekistan, and even as far off as Thailand. However, these were all just guesses. No one knew where the tin used to create Bronze Age bronze during late Bronze Age Canaan came from. As we can see from numerous maps online, people have been theorizing on where tin came from for a very long time. Here we shall read some of the quotes of antiquity to help build a picture. Herodotus's histories. But concerning those in Europe that are the furthest away toward evening, I cannot speak with assurance, for I do not believe that there is a river called by foreigners Eridanos, issuing into the northern sea, where our amber is said to come from, nor do I have any knowledge of tin islands, which is in Greek is Cassiteridis, where our tin is brought from. All we know is that our tin and amber comes from the most distant parts." Unquote. He also mentions gold. Quote, "But in the north of Europe there is by far the most gold. In this matter again, I cannot say with assurance how the gold is produced, but it is said that one-eyed men called Arimasapians steal it from griffins." Strabo Geography. Posidonius says that tin is not found upon the surface, as authors commonly relate, but that it is dug up and that it is produced both in places among the barbarians who dwell beyond the Lusitanians and in the islands of the Cassiterides, and that from the Britannic Islands it is carried to Marseille. Here is a Diodorus Siculus quote. "The Phoenicians in ancient times undertook frequent voyages by sea, in way of traffic as merchants, so that they planted many colonies both in Africa and in Western Europe." The Phoenicians in ancient times undertook frequent voyages by sea, in way of traffic as merchants, so that they planted many colonies both in Africa, in these western parts of Europe also. These merchants succeeding in their undertaking, and thereupon growing very rich, passed at length beyond the Pillars of Hercules into the sea called the ocean. Here we have a quote from Strabo again, from his book Geography. Northward and opposite Artabri are the islands denominated Cassiterides, situated in the high seas, but under nearly the same latitude as Britain. From this it appears to what a degree the extremities of the habitable earth are narrowed by the surrounding sea. Strabo from geography again. The Cassiterides are 10 in number and lie near each other in the ocean towards the north. From the haven of the Artrabi, which means the extreme northwestern part of the Iberian Peninsula, one of them is desert, but the others are inhabited by men in black cloaks, clad in tunics reaching to the feet, girt about their breast, and walking with staves, thus resembling the Furies we see in tragic representations. They subsist by their cattle, leading for the most part a wandering life. Of the metals they have tin and lead, which with skins they barter with the merchants for earthenware, salt, and brazen vessels. Here is Strabo from geography again. Formerly, the Phoenicians alone carried this tin traffic from Gades, concealing the passage from everyone, and when the Romans followed a certain shipmaster, they also might find a market. The shipmaster of jealousy purposefully ran his vessel upon a shoal, leading those who followed him into the same destructive disaster. He himself escaped by means of a fragment of the ship and received from the state the value of the cargo he had lost. The Romans, nevertheless, by frequent efforts, discovered the passage. As soon as Publius Crassus, passing over to them, perceived that the metals were dug out at a little depth, and that the men were peaceably disposed, he declared it to those who already wished to traffic this sea for profit, although the passage was longer than that to Britain. Here we have Pliny the Elder. Opposite to Celtiberia are a number of islands, by the Greeks called the Cassiterides, in consequence of their abounding in tin, and facing the promontory of the Aratobiae are the 6 islands of the gods, which some persons have called the Fortunate Islands." Unquote. The advent of isotope analysis is immediately useful in showing that the late Bronze Age source of tin for the southern Levant could not have been Asian or African. On the 4th of July 1977, Philip Baker was leading a beginner's youth hostel, association adventure holiday, underwater swimming course off of Moor Sand near Salcombe in Devon, England, when out of the corner of his eye he spotted what turned out to be a bronze sword lying exposed on the gravel bottom around 6.5 meters below the surface. After taking the sword back to the shore, he went out again with one of his beginners, taking part in the swimming course. About 4 meters from where the first bronze sword was found, a second one was found lying on the gravel also. After testing, these swords were dated to the 12th century BCE, only a few decades after the close of the ancient Near East's late Bronze Age. This is slap bang on the time a Trojan conflict of Celtic origin may have taken place, as presented by myself and several other notable researchers, most prolifically Iman Wilkins, of course being the most notable for our modern era. If you have made it this far in the video, I'm sure you are aware, as we all are, that tin was streamed in Cornwall in prehistoric times, and now we know how far it was traded. Due to this isotopic analysis, with cultural links with the Mediterranean and links to the Phoenicians of the Levant put in place, here we shall seek further evidence for the trade route from Cornwall and or northwestern Europe to the eastern Mediterranean, specifically to Crete during the Bronze Age from 2600 BC onwards. The earliest tin bronze objects are attested from around 2600 BC in what is now Iran. A century or so later, such artifacts began to turn up in Crete, the centre of the Minoan Empire, from 2700 BC to 1450 BC, a society that was then the most advanced civilization in the Western world, allegedly. During this study, we come across a potentiality of two possible sources. But firstly, I must say this is why I believe the Dorians/Sea Peoples came from the west, as they already knew their ways east due to long-standing trade, with smaller Trojan colonies peppered along the Mediterranean. These people came to be known as the Phoenicians, amongst many other names. We often find chroniclers use varying names for similar people who change over time. The earliest known deposits of tin in Mesopotamia were found in the Far East, in modern-day Afghanistan, at the Oxus Valley in the north. The existence of a trade route from this region to the eastern Mediterranean is well documented. There is, however, evidence for a second potential trade route from the far west, either Cornwall, Brittany or Galicia on the Atlantic regions, or the Erzgebirge Mountains between Bohemia and Saxony. Hudson argues that as tin in Crete from circa 1600 BC was found with amber, which could only come from the Baltic region, this is evidence of trans-European trade coming from the west rather than trade coming from the east. Exploring the same logic but in the opposite direction, the widespread presence in North and Western Europe of the faience beads, only produced in Egypt and Crete and dated between 2000 to 1400 BC, found in Britain and Poland, also suggests long-distance trading links in the Bronze Age. He also finds documents from 2334 BC to 2278 BC that suggests a Western tin trade and speculates that Eastern tin must have been more expensive than Western sources because of the distances involved. I also found it curious that the main sources of tin in ancient times does not seem to coincide with the earliest known instances of bronze use. Here we have the list of earliest known bronze usage. The Balkans, 4650 BC, Mesopotamia, 3500 BCE, the Indus Valley, 3300 years BC, Egypt, 3150 BC, the Aegean, 3200 BC, and Gansu, 2900 BCE. I must state that these dates are alleged and pretty mainstream, and who knows what the actual dates may be. How did early metallurgists discover bronze? Maybe they worked with smaller local sources of tin, or maybe this is just another gap in our knowledge of ancient history. Alas, the clear usage of British tin had been traded so far afield in deep antiquity, as far as one can see right now, is indicating this ancient trade network over 4,000 years ago, and could be older than the discovered tin itself, the metals potentially being melted down and reworked, for one example. The works of Lawrence Waddell, for another example, seems vindicated, with his writings and works being hypothesized long before the advent of isotopic analysis, and many archaeological finds of the modern era support his claims, from coins to writing, etc. We have more to come from Waddell in future videos. For now, I shall leave it here. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. I enjoyed researching it. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe and all that good stuff. I will just leave this caveat for my subscribers. I will just say the videos may be slower right now, and that's just because I'm working on several projects at the same time. though the wheels are back in motion and there is plenty more videos to come. So thanks again. Apologies for my hiatus, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Stay safe. Peace.